Alright everybody, so I'm going to be giving you all an update on a very tragic story that I've been following since its inception, and I've already done a video about initially, but after covering the basic facts of the story, it's time to start covering the reaction to it, because this is not going anywhere. You see, about a week and a half ago now, I'd say, sorry I'm not good with time, a 16-year-old child, at least conservatives love to talk about how young 16-year-olds are and how they can't consent to getting surgeries that help them with their gender problems or whatever, but all of a sudden a child dies who's 16 and they don't care. But literal child murdered, named Nex. Now they were non-binary, and they were known to have experienced a long history of bullying at their school. I mean, as you can imagine, most trans kids, even if they have a group of friends and supporters within their school, someone or some group of their peers is going to be antagonistic towards them, and targeted bullying for LGBT students is nothing new. And so, after Nex was attacked, thrown to the ground, sustained a head injury that would then send them to the hospital, the next morning, Nex collapsed in the bathroom, and they were taken to the hospital where they were pronounced dead. The police of the town have come out and said they see no connection between the head injury and Nex's death. No, I've seen something saying Nex used he, him. I've been under the impression from everything that I have read that Nex was non-binary and used they, them pronouns. And I know that at one point, Nex's grandparent misgendered them with, like, she, her pronouns, and then corrected herself and said they instead, and said, sorry, you know, we're all, like, learning, you know, the whole trans thing was new, but we were all, like, working with Nex to learn about it and be accepting and everything, you know, what you hope for, like, boomer, supportive parents or grandparents to do. Like, even if they don't understand it, they're willing to understand it. They're not hostile towards you. They're learning, right? That's what you hope for, and that seems to be what Nex's parents were doing. Maybe mask envy. Honestly, I'll just go with they, them pronouns because those were acceptable. And they, them pronouns are very gender neutral. You can never really be incorrect referring to somebody with they, them pronouns. So that's what I'm going to go with, because you can't really go wrong with they, them. So lads, lasses, and non-binary asses, sit your butts down. It is time to talk about some civil rights stuff. You see, Nex is quickly blown up into a face of civil rights, trans rights protest in America. And one of the best examples of the protests that have happened across the country for more attention to be brought to Nex's life and for there to be a investigation done into their death is the students at their very own high school. Over 50 students at Owasso High School, which was Nex's school, walked out of school to do a protest. Trans youth belong here. You matter. Rest in power, Nex. Justice for Nex. Trans lives matter. Nex Benedict. You see, the right has had to grapple with this in a very interesting way. As you all know from when Breonna J died, or I should say was murdered, the right wanted to ride this interesting line between weaponizing the death of a trans child to celebrate it and say this is like a dead groomer, this is like a dead degenerate, right? The right loves celebrating the deaths of dead trans and gay children, right? The 41% jokes, all that good stuff. They're like they've always loved that, but at the same time, this is Twitter, where every conservative tweet will go mega viral. So they have to simultaneously celebrate this as like a win in the culture war, like the idea that, oh yeah, now even the kids are doing hate crimes on trans people. Trans kids aren't even safe in schools because the kids will hate crime them. The kids are getting based. Gen Z is getting based. Like, that's what they're, like, you know, sort of cheering for. they have to simultaneously ride that line where they are cheering this on as a culture war win, while also weaponizing their think of the children mantra and seeming as though their goal is to protect kids and they have moral superiority over trans rights groups. It's a very fine line they have to ride between trans kids dying as a culture war win for them they need to publicly celebrate, and they want to protect kids from being trans, and this is all about saving kids, which is not really going to vibe well with their celebration of this. So their way of celebrating it, and even of denying Nex's death, has been quite interesting. So one of the first tweets I have here to show you guys is actually a TikTok made by Tizzy Ent, which is a, I think a pretty progressive, like TikToker account. I love this guy's look. This guy like has the look of like a badass biker, but he makes generally pretty progressive videos. And I think he did a good breakdown on this. Let's take a look.
Ryan Walters, the superintendent in Oklahoma, who for the past several years has pushed an agenda that...
Here, I gotta stop the music because it's not stopping itself. Ugh. Ugh.
...paints gay, trans, and non-binary adults and children as the threat and the enemy, finally spoke out about the death of Nex Benedict.
Mind you, not the only problem in that district, okay? Nex Benedict came from the same district that Libs of TikTok is on the school board for. Like, that is Twitter anti-trans chudland, you know?
Made a video that he posted on Twitter addressing their death. And I don't know if he would be proud of this or not, but he actually managed to enrage me in about 4 seconds' time.
Here in Oklahoma, we had a tragedy where a young student lost their life.
Why does this look like Asmongold if he had, like, a decent diet?
Lost their life. Their life.
Yeah, they, of course, love to misgender the dead trans child. The fact that they are not willing to respect the pronouns of the child who has been killed or who died is a pretty clear indication of the fact they do not give a fuck about dead kids, nor do they give a fuck about living kids. They have no respect for a murdered child.
You sanctimonious, disrespectful piece of shit. Set aside being woke for a moment. The sentence, "a student lost their life," is a correct sentence in the English language. And when you factor in the fact that Nex Benedict used the pronouns they, them, to call them her is intentionally disrespectful.
Oh, it's absolutely intentional, by the way. None of them are doing it on accident. Yeah, none of them are doing it on accident. It's absolutely on purpose. Hey, Zan, is that a crazy ace you're hitting? No, this is just a Yo Bar. It's just a menthol nicotine vape. As for my weed, I am right now I'm rocking the Crystal Clear. They were actually on sale for 25% off, which is like a very substantial like sale. So I was like, fuck it, I'll get 4. I'll get 4.
And you went out of your way to do that. You absolute vile piece of shit. And then he spent the next 8 seconds or so saying that, oh, it's a tragedy and we're praying and the police are investigating.
Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. One thing that I love is that conservative politicians love to say that thoughts and prayers don't count. What we really need is a good guy with a gun when there's a mass shooting. But then as soon as a child is murdered for obvious political motivations, or at the very least it has some bearing. I wouldn't say it's obvious, like 100% clear, that like Nex Benedict was murdered because they were trans. But what's very clear is that there was an elevated amount of bullying that I refuse to believe had that Nex being trans had no bearing on. I don't think there's a single trans kid in the entire country who has received 0 shit ever at school, period, for being trans or LGBT. I don't think there's a single school in any progressive area where there's not at least one kid who's a little shithead.
And that's where it ended, because from that point on, the next minute and 10 seconds, he made about him and how he's being persecuted.
Radical left-wing groups and the media have lied about the death of the student and have intentionally lied to push an agenda that was politically motivated to...
For those of you guys that don't know, the side of this that is trying to openly celebrate Nex's death are the ones claiming that Nex was actually a bully. The story that you'll hear from conservative pundits is that actually Nex was a bully who had a whole group of trans LGBT bully friends, and Nex went into the bathroom and picked off more than they could chew and got pushed onto the ground. And then also the head injury had nothing to do with Nex dying. They simultaneously say Nex deserved to get beat up in the bathroom because they were the bully, while also saying, but the getting beat up in the bathroom had nothing to do with them dying. And also, you're evil if you're a lefty trying to quote-unquote weaponize this child's death. They are truly evil. It makes me think there might be more evidence for this crime being connected to hate than we already know when the right has jumped to so quickly be defensive about it.
To attack me and conservatives in the state of Oklahoma.
Yes, the implication is a trans student would deserve to be killed for, like, as they say, dumping water on another student. That is what they claim happened, and even if it did happen, I don't care if I do not care if one kid dumped water on another kid. I don't think that means the water dumping kid deserves to be thrown onto the ground and given a traumatic brain injury that kills them the next day. At 16 fucking years old.
No, is the media has lied locally and nationally to try to push a political agenda against conservatives.
Let me go ahead and make this statement. I have no political agenda in Oklahoma. There are no candidates there that I currently endorse. Although,
you know who does? Libs of TikTok and all the other political pundits that have hyper-focused on that district of Oklahoma to, like, fearmonger about litter boxes and trans bathrooms.
Oh, I'd be willing to. Any who are trying to fix the shit show that you...
Ooh, hold on. There was a really good example of one of the tweets that I'm talking about. I'd like to very quickly divert just to show you guys very quick. Oh, here's a video covering it. The evil ghouls on Twitter are working full force to paint the worst possible narrative when it comes to the death of Nex Benedict, comparing their death to Jussie Smollett and George Floyd as if he wasn't murdered. Nothing has been ruled out so far as the cause of death. So yeah, this is just a quick diversion, but like yeah, the right have started referring to Nex Benedict as quote unquote the new Jussie Smollett. Yep, nope, Tim Pool, actually. I thought it was just a random conservative poster, but it's the guy. Nex got mad that girls made fun of them, so they poured water on them. The girls retaliated, but police said Nex started it and could be charged. Literally nothing about that is true. Police added their death was not related to the injuries from the fight. Welcome to Jussie Smollett 4.0. I guess there's been a 2.0, a 3.0 in between that the right, like, hyper-focused on with their culture war stuff that we didn't hear about because it wasn't a thing. But I guess this is the fourth. Maybe they think Brianna J was Jussie Smollett 3.0. I wouldn't be surprised, but yeah, I guess Dead Child is Jussie Smollett 2.0 or 4.0. Jussie Smollett, who literally organized and faked a hate crime in order to make money and get popular and famous and get sympathy.
You've been a part of. But currently, I have no agenda in Oklahoma. I am not after Oklahoma conservatives. I'm after you. I mean, at this point, I'll toss in Tom Woods as well, because when asked about the death of Nex Benedict, he was like, oh, it's terrible, it's tragedy. And then followed that with saying that all members of the LGBTQ plus community are filth. So fuck Tom Woods as well.
Oh, and of course, remember, Libs of TikTok, who is on the school board for that district, has been tweeting pictures of trans kids with the text, all in red text, eradicate written across it, with the caption, eradicate transgenderism. Like, she's been posting a post like that like twice a day for the last 3 days since the Taylor Lorenz interview.
The projection is projecting when you're sitting there accusing the left, accusing liberals of taking the tragedy of a child and using it for their own political agenda. As you do that very thing, as you sit there and turn a video speaking about them into a woe is me about how the woke mob is coming for you and you're not going to back down, and using every...
I love this video. I like guys like this who make content like this, particularly like Beau the Fifth Column's a good example. I mean, Hassan would be a great example if he didn't do so much apologia for authoritarian, genocidal states. But, yeah, like, it sucks that Hassan's not part of that gang, but, like, the super hyper masculine, like, Southern, well, obviously Hassan doesn't have the Southern aspect, but you know what I mean, right? Like, bearded, like, larger dudes, right? Like, Vosh is too into anime and video games, I think, these days to give off that vibe as much as these guys do. But, like, the Southern accent that Beau and this guy have, and, like, the big beard, like, the biker look almost, the hyper... Like, no one can call these guys soy boys. No one can, like, make some masculinity minimizing argument towards these guys. They have to, in some way, try to engage with what's being said, which is a conservative's worst nightmare.
Every opportunity, every time a reporter wants to talk to you about the death of Next, to further push your rhetoric that led to that assault in the first place. Like when the New York Times wanted to speak to you, you called their death a tragedy, but there's not multiple genders, there's two. That's how God created us, Mr. Walter said, saying he did not believe that non-binary or transgender people exist. They have literally existed as long as mankind has. Cultures, civilizations throughout history have names for them. This is not a modern idea. This has always...
My favorite thing are, like, the trans women from back during, like, the 1920s before we'd, like, demonized it and really saw it weird, and, like, the conservative movement, like, turned it into a weird thing we have to suppress. Where you would see, like, news clippings where it was like, this young lad became a beautiful young lass, you know? And it would be like, very much like weirdly, like very clearly, like not even afraid to say this trans woman is pretty. Like in the newspaper back in the day. Like it'd be a picture of like an ex-Navy dude, like transitioning into a woman, like before and after, literal like 1920s before and after pic. And it's like, behold, New York woman, New York man becomes lovely New York woman. You'd be surprised at how beautiful she is. You know, like something like that.
And you are turning them into something that should be feared and hated and ultimately die. So yeah, I'm not coming for Oklahoma conservatives. I'm coming for you because you should not have a job where children...
Should I do that, by the way? Should I do like a 1920s radio voice all the time for all my streams? Just like, hello, everybody. We're going to be talking about the craziness of the right today. They've been saying some crazy goddamn shit lately. You know, it's like, just go absolutely crazy with it. No, we're not doing that. I'm sorry. My throat will hurt. My throat will hurt.
Children's safety is in your purview because you've made it clear that there are certain kids you don't care about. And as far as Oklahoma conservatives are concerned, I've heard from a few of them in the days since the death of Next Benedict. Several of them who are in office, who told me most conservatives in the state of Oklahoma, especially those in office, can't stand you. They think you're too much. You take it too far.
That is true. Like, you have to remember, the conservatives overall don't have a lot of overwhelming, like, voter power in America. Gerrymandering and the Electoral College are the only way they hold anywhere near the amount of political power they have now. Eventually, it's going to be a numbers game, and they're going to lose that numbers game, which is why they're so desperate to disenfranchise and, like, young voters, and the ones they aren't, to disenfranchise the ones they can't radicalize from voting at all.
You're the problem. You're not the hero of your story.
There's a lot of low-info voters out there.
First time I shared it had no signatures. Now it has just shy of 18,000, and I think that number should be much, much, much bigger. So if you haven't...
Ooh. Yeah, I'm going to drop a link to this video in the chat and the description so you guys can go sign this petition. And maybe something happens. Maybe the GOP school superintendent who hired Libs of TikTok will get fired. This is the guy who is the reason Libs of TikTok is part of the school board in that, like, area. Damn. I'm signing? Yeah, let me go ahead and drop the link. Absolutely. Tizzy Ent. I'm dropping that follow. Hell yeah. I like this guy. This guy's dope.